Hey, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch, and today we're going to talk money. What are PAs actually making in 2024? We're going to look at two different salary reports, one from Medscape and one from AAPA. Now, of course, you shouldn't go into medicine because you think you're going to make a lot of money. Most of us who work in medicine are really doing it because we want to help people, but your salary is an important part of your job, and we spent many years in school and racked up some crazy student loans in order to do this. So it's important to pay attention to salary. And knowing what other PAs make is helpful for you if you are out there job hunting and trying to negotiate a contract. But it's also helpful even if you're in a job that you don't plan on leaving, that you really love. It's good to know what other people are making to make sure that your pay is competitive and to know when you should be asking for raises and how much you should be asking for. Now, both of these reports are survey driven, meaning that the data that they got was collected from surveys that they sent to practicing PAs. And we're going to start with Medscape, and they sent out their survey in November and December of 2023, and they got just over 2,000 responses. And Medscape comes up with a base average salary for PAs in 2024 of $131,000. Or if you get paid with productivity, they say that average figure goes up to $142,000. Now, the base salary is an increase of $9,000 from their 2023 report, which they figure is an increase of 6%. Now, that sounds great. I'm all for a 6% increase or even more, but I feel like that number is a little misleading, and here's why. During the years of the pandemic when things were closed down, most PAs, or most people in medicine in general, saw their salary just kind of stay the same, if not decrease a little bit. And especially those who worked on productivity and RVUs, they generally saw a decrease in their pay. But once society started back up again and people started coming back to healthcare and the systems have gotten back to fairly normal functioning, in fact, even seeing more patients than normal probably right now, and higher acuity, ordering more tests and more procedures because of all the things that got put on hold during COVID, we're consequently seeing the pay a little higher. So I feel like that's almost a false sense of increase, because if we hadn't gone through the pandemic, our pay would have been increasing every year. And so we might be where we are now, or we might even have been a little higher had the pandemic not happened. So I'm not knocking the 6%. I'm just saying that I think there's some factors behind it that confound that a little bit. So it's probably not as exciting as a genuine 6% increase would be. And of course, not everyone saw that increase. Of the respondents, over 20% said that they saw no change in their pay one way or the other, but over 50% did see an increase. So that was positive. Now, they did ask the question if PAs feel like they are fairly compensated. I think I was a little bit surprised at this number because 53% of the respondents did feel that they are compensated fairly. And I just thought that that number would be a little bit lower, that more people would be unhappy with their pay. But I have to say that number pales in comparison to the 2020 report, when 74% of the respondents said that they felt that PAs were being fairly compensated. So that kind of backs up my theory. Like, I think we were starting to get better pay and things were going well, but then the pandemic kind of derailed things. Now, they also have a graph that analyzes the salary based on workplace setting. So no surprises really here that like OR and surgical specialties made the highest annual salary of $156,000, while medical offices, clinic-based practices like family practice were the lowest at about $136,000. Now, that's kind of traditional. Usually the jobs that are high stress and challenging environments like the OR, ICU, the ER have traditionally paid higher. But don't forget that there are specialties like dermatology, maybe even functional medicine, or some of these cash pay concierge type practices that can have really good pay. In fact, that pay can rival or even surpass that of surgical specialties. Another thing that they looked at was comparing salary based on compensation type. So they compared people making straight salary to those making hourly pay to those who are paid salary plus some kind of productivity bonus. And it didn't really surprise me that there was a difference there. I guess what surprised me was the amount of difference. There was a $15,000 difference between the plain salary and then the salary with productivity. And I guess I would have thought that that difference would have been a little lower, like $5,000, maybe $8,000 difference. I did not expect it to be that much of a gap. So apparently working some kind of RVU or production based can get you more money. But there's one caveat. If you're looking at a job that has that type of compensation, you really want to understand what the RVU structure or the bonus structure is to make sure that they have some reasonable benchmarks set. And if you're not sure about how to do that just by looking at the numbers, you definitely can talk to PAs and NPs that are already in that practice or have worked for that practice, and they can help you get an idea about whether you can actually meet those numbers. Because if you don't do that, you might end up getting a salary that is significantly less than what you bargained for. And this report's not very long, but it does have some other graphs of different things like demographics, urban versus rural, pay by years of experience, those kind of things. So if you're interested in looking at it some more, it's free, and I've got the link to that report down below in the description box. Now let's move on to the AAPA salary guide. Now this survey was open from January to March of this past year, 2024, and they got over 12,000 responses. So this data is going to have a little bit more integrity and going to be more trustworthy, I think, than the Medscape data. This report has tons of information in it. It is just pages and pages and pages of tables and diagrams and things. So it has a lot if you want to look by specialty or subspecialty, years of practice, areas of the country, cost of living adjustments, all of that stuff. It is a pretty thorough report. You do have to be an AAPA member to access the report for free. Otherwise, you can just buy the report by itself. So I'll have a link to that down below in the description box as well. They use a median salary, not an average, which I think is what Medscape uses. And median is a bit more accurate way to calculate a middle-of-the-road salary. And they come up with a median annual salary for PAs in 2024 of $127,000 or $70 per hour as the median. Now, like Medscape's report, this was an increase over the 2023 AAPA salary report, and that increase was $7,000 more. Now, some of the other things that I thought were interesting that I wanted to highlight from this report is the median base salary by state. So I pulled out the highest and the lowest 5 for each one. So the highest paying states are all on the West Coast. That's California, Alaska, Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, and Nevada as well. Oregon and Nevada tied. The lowest paying states, just based looking at salary, is going to be Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, and South Carolina. So right there in the southern states. But you may be thinking, well, you can't really compare salaries from one part of the country to the other. And you're right, that's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. You really have to take in consideration the cost of living. And AAPA has already done that. So they went through and adjusted salaries based on the cost of living in those different states. And when they did that, the states that came out as the highest and lowest paying actually changed quite a bit. So the highest paying states, if you're adjusting for cost of living, are going to be Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, and Georgia. And then the lowest paying ones are going to be Massachusetts, Maryland, Rhode Island, Hawaii, and Washington, D.C. Now, another table that they have is PAs per capita by state. So what that means in each state, how many PAs you have relative to your population figures. So the states with the highest number of PAs per capita are Alaska, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, North Carolina, and Montana. And then those with the lowest are going to be Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Missouri, and Indiana. Now, another interesting figure that they highlighted in this report is how many PAs are receiving professional development funds, which would include like CME dollars, and what is the median amount that they receive. Over 90% of the respondents said that they do receive professional development / CME funds, and the median amount that they received was $2,000. Not a bad total, but I don't think it's as high as it should be. I mean, you can't even afford to go to one conference every year with that, not by the time you pay for airfare and hotel and your food and the registration of the conference. But another thing that annoys me about the CME funds is that I've seen some physician contracts, and the ones that I have seen, and I suspect most of them, have a significantly higher CME compensation or professional development compensation. And when I say significantly, like some of the ones I've looked at have been like between $4,000 and $5,000, where most of the time, as you saw, our median is like $2,000, and I've seen mostly like 1,500, maybe 2,500 if you're lucky. And it's really not fair because as PAs, we have to get a significant amount of CME that's on par with the physicians and sometimes even surpasses what they have to get. So why do we get so much less money? I bring this up because I want people to pay attention to that in their contract and to try to negotiate for more. And it's also good if you're negotiating a contract and they won't budge anymore on salary. Perhaps you could get them to offer more in CME money and or time off for CME. Now, if you really want to maximize your CME dollars, you can look at getting gift card CME. Now, if you're saying, I have no idea what gift card CME is, or if you've kind of been on the fence, like don't know if it's really something ethical that you want to use or if it's going to be accepted by your company for reimbursement, then you'll want to watch this video here. I kind of cover all of that, and I also offer up a great gift card CME for PAs. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.